let's explore the idea of what potential, as we call it, I'm saying potential because I'm placating in a sense to the fact that, a lot of us still do not believe necessarily that extraterrestrials are in fact real, right? So let's explore this idea of what do extraterrestrials look like. Now, first off, the first objection that comes up is we say, oh, well, how do we even know that they're real? Which is fine, that's fair. Within our society, everything that has gone on, the amount of manipulation of information and the amount of push to sort of make this subject seem, not credible, you can understand how a lot of people have this position. Not only that, but we got to look a little deeper. Within our minds, to accept something like extraterrestrials, would it mean that we would have to expand our way of seeing reality, expand our way of seeing ourselves to a place that is legitimately uncomfortable for a lot of people to do? It can actually crash out aspects of our reality that we've become so accustomed to. So if you're hearing of someone that doesn't believe extraterrestrials are real and your response is simply, well, they're closed-minded idiots and blah, 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 they don't know what's going on, maybe it's time to rethink that a little bit and start thinking a little bit about and empathizing with where people are at and saying, what is the implications of something like knowing what extraterrestrials look like, the fact that they're, real and that they've been interacting with humanity? How does that actually potentially crash some of what we've become so comfortable in accepting? And if we come from that empathetic point of view, we start realizing maybe there's different approaches we can take to this subject to not only bring credibility to it, but to help people move through the reality that in a lot of ways we're just uncomfortable in exploring this topic. Again, we get back into suppression of consciousness. But let's say we're actually going to explore this, which we're going to do in this video, and we're going to do through a contactee that we actually interviewed not too long ago. She's the president of the New Energy Movement, and she's had contactee experiences from when she's young. And in this upcoming clip, she's going to talk about what she saw these beings doing in her experience of being contacted, what their interests were within aspects of our planet and aspects of her in particular. She's also going to describe what they looked like, sort of how they moved, and what she perceived from the entire situation. Now, the purpose of this, again, is to explore this idea of how can we slowly listen to the stories of these people. And again, these are credible individuals, everyday individuals like you and I who are saying, I've had this experience. It's silly, in my opinion, to just disregard it as fake and disregard it as not real, especially when it's happening to thousands and thousands of people on this planet, and especially when we look at the declassified cases within the documents that come out of the military and the government and so forth that say we have contact with extraterrestrials, not from, necessarily even our direct solar system, but potentially beyond. This sort of information has been disclosed in declassified documents. So when we actually start saying, okay, this is a serious subject we need to look at, listening to people like Susan in this clip you're going to see here helps to actually expand the conversation in a way where we can allow the mind to slowly start saying, all right, I'm going to open up a little more and a little more because we can do this in such a credible way. Let's check out her clip.
They were more golden, luminous, with sometimes a bit of like a green hue, and they could move into our physical density, but very, very light. Almost like, imagine like powdery skin. So when they were doing work where they needed to be more dense, their bodies would shift and change. It's almost like, well, then skin would develop, and there would be, sorry, I just thought of something. There would be more of them in, a humanoid type of form. So, they were smaller. Probably however tall I was at 5, they were slightly taller than I was. And I did see them literally shift from energy form to physical. But again, not like, a hardcore physical, but very, very light form. And the sense that I got was when they shifted to, being a little bit more in our physical form, that they couldn't stay here very long. Like they couldn't stay in that form very long. Like the environment was not entirely hospitable for them to do that. Mm-hmm. So they would work really fast also. There's a lot of expedient working that was done to assess and measure whatever they needed to. I do remember them taking measurements of water in my pool. They also had a little blue light that they were using, and they were waving it across the kitchen. And I'm not sure exactly what they were doing. They were looking at the food, so it was this really detailed examination of me, but also my environment.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you can see a lot of details there. Now, if you're new to this, this space and seeing this sort of thing, and understandably so. I mean, on CETV, it's interesting. We actually have people who, have been following our site for a while. Then they see an interview like this, and they go, "Man, like I didn't realize like that this whole contactee thing was actually so legit. I didn't realize that there was so much credibility in this space." If you watch the full interview of the contactee experience, where we go through all of Susan's experience and her research and everything, and including the research that's been published in the 802-page book Beyond UFOs, exploring the science of consciousness and all that sort of stuff. When we start to look at that, we start to realize this subject is a hell of a lot more credible than we realize. And there's a lot more research from a scientific perspective going on than maybe we realize. And so people that are watching these interviews are having these feelings of going, whoa, hold on a second. This isn't just, some X-Files show. This is actually highly legit. This is something that, is I never realized. I never actually connected face-to-face with an individual with a credible story, with a credible background, who claims to have had a contactee experience. I just assumed they were these crazy people that are doing drugs all the time or something, and these are the experiences that we hear. But when we start to actually see it, we start to empathize and connect with that individual in a very different way, and that's the purpose of these interviews. And so right now we have this free screening available to watch this entire Susan interview, the contactee experience. It's in the link below. Check it out and explore this, because we're doing this work because we're trying to expand humanity's consciousness here. We know that we're ready to move to the next level and evolve not only the way we think within ourselves, but how that's going to change the way we live out there. Because the way we live out there, everyone's getting a little bit sick of, in the sense of we're feeling a little confined, we're feeling a little tight, we're feeling a little bit like we're being taken advantage of, and it's not too comfortable. And the reality of the situation is exploring this stuff allows us to realize how we give away a lot of our power, and we confine our consciousness to things that, are limiting. And so when we confine our own consciousness to limiting ways of being, and we then go and act from a limited way of being within our society, do you expect to live in a highly expansive society? No, you're going to live in a society that reflects the state of consciousness or the state of being, how we believe, how we perceive, the things that we think about ourselves. It's going to reflect that. So in exploring this stuff through a credible way and exploring this stuff deeply, we start to actually expand our consciousness, and then we start thinking about our world differently, which is why the ET, UFO, and contactee topic is so ridiculed, because it stands to actually reshape and change every aspect of society. As one of our lead journalists always says, it leaves no aspect of society untouched, right? So this is why this subject is so important in not only expanding our consciousness, but why so much of it is suppressed and laughed off. So take advantage of this free screening in the interview below, and let's start exploring this contactee experience from a more courageous and credible point of view.